All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Encouraging Truth number 21. We are super glad you're joining us today. First, if you don't know anything about our ministry, you can go online to womensbiblestudy.com, and there you can check out everything you want to know about us. We have over 350 videos, lots of different topics. We've worked through books of the Bible like Luke or Revelation or Acts. We've had lots of guest speakers, Sheila Walsh, David Wood, Carol Kent. So you can go on there and get lots of stuff, but we started this Encouraging Truth series pretty much because of something that happened that we're going to be talking about today. So I want to talk today about this one word, and we've all experienced it over the last quite a few months now. And here is the word right here, and the word is change. Now, our Encouraging Truth number 21 is this today. God is in control when life changes. Now, for those of us that are watching this or listening to this, that word change, it could mean something different to every one of you. For some of you, that means a relationship change. Maybe you had a divorce, or maybe your boyfriend broke up with you, or whatever. Some people, it's a job change. Maybe for some of you, it's your last kid left to college change. Some of you are moving. It's a moving change. Some of you, it's going to be a political change this year. And for the most part, those are things that are they're just kind of normal. Like, those are normal things that change in everyone's life. Like, kids just move on. Companies go out of business. New presidents are elected. Friends move away. Like, that's just kind of normal. And we're used to that, and we understand that, and we seem to adapt okay with that. But the problem over the last quite a few months is living with changes that we have absolutely no control over, like the coronavirus. That's today. 2 years from now, it's probably going to be something else. But when the coronavirus hit in March, we were having our very last Bible study before we took a week off for our spring break. And we've just always done that. Like, it's just like clockwork. Like, every March, we know the 1 week everyone takes off, we take off, you go away on vacation, we go away, we come back the next week, and we're back to normal again. But then, during that week that we had a break, the president and the vice president get on the news and say, oh, this virus is here, and we need to slow the spread. So we need you to stay home for 15 days. Now, as long as I've lived, I've never, ever had anything like that happen to us ever. And to be perfectly honest, and I know I've told you this before, I was totally annoyed. And the reason for it is because it was messing with my routine. I've never once had to cancel Bible study. Thank the Lord for that. So my first thought was, okay, it's just 2 weeks. We'll just deal with it. I can make it through that. So I started walking back then. It was a little cooler back then in Phoenix. I actually laid in the sun a couple days, and I just bided my time until those 2 weeks were up. And then it changed again, and it changed to 30 days. And by this time, I'm like totally annoyed, stuck in my house. I would say like grumpy would be the word. But there was something that I needed to learn, and it would take me a few months to learn being quarantined at home during the coronavirus. And it was this. It's something I know, but this was on a different level, that life changes. But here's what I needed to learn. I need to see God in the changes. And honestly, up until the coronavirus, my life was pretty normal. And changes in my life were normal. The kids grew up, they went to school, they graduated, they got married, they had kids. Like, that's just normal stuff. I knew that would happen. But this virus did something to me that shocked me. It made me realize I am a total brat. So we know that off the bat. And God had to remind me of something since day one of this virus. And that's this. We're supposed to have joy in the midst of change. But I didn't. Honestly, I didn't. I found myself really frustrated. The world's changing. I didn't like it. Couldn't go to my favorite restaurants. Churches were closed. Bible study was shut down. It was so shocking to me. I could not find joy anywhere. And then they told me I had to wear a mask. And don't even get me started on those things because they literally ruin my life. I can't breathe, okay? I walk into a store now and I feel like I'm literally in China, not America, because we went to China and they all wear face masks. It's normal to them. It's not normal here. So what I would do is whine. Every single day I would whine about it. If I would go to a store, I would whine about the face masks and I would tell people why I didn't think that I should have to wear it and I was miserable and all this. And then one day, I stopped and looked in the mirror. And I did not like what I saw. And it wasn't that I was wearing a face mask and that's what was staring back at me. But it was me who I saw in the mirror. It was this person that was fighting and raging against something that I had absolutely no control over, which was a country devastated by a virus. And there was nothing I could do to make it better or to get life back to where it used to be. And it dawned on me that along with being a spoiled brat, that I wasn't acting very Christ-like at all. I wasn't acting very Paul-like or Peter-like or David-like or Abraham-like or Moses-like. I wasn't even acting like anyone in the Bible. And something hit me that changed how I started feeling. And it was coming to this recognition that all the men and women in the Bible, their lives changed all the time. Okay? Think about Abraham. Abraham goes to this new land in Israel thinking everything's going to be fine. The minute he gets there, there's a famine. He has to go to Egypt. David, just to live, just to stay alive, had to be on the run for, I think, 20 years before he could ever even be king because Saul was chasing him. Every day was different. He was hiding in a cave here. He was going here. Joseph, falsely accused, thrown into prison. Peter sees Jesus die on a cross and it kind of destroys his faith for 5 minutes. Moses takes a job that should take 2 weeks and it lasts 40 years. These are some big changes that these guys went through. So here's what I had to come to the conclusion of in my life, that life is all about change, and that's what I want to talk about today. Because there's a lot of things that are going to come into our life that we have no control over and that we're not going to like. And maybe for some of you it was the car accident. Maybe the coronavirus took someone that you loved. Maybe it was a job loss. Maybe you lost your job because the company that you worked for went under. And I want to remind us, but honestly this lesson is mostly for me today, I want to continue to remind us that life changes. But here's the deal. I think it's supposed to. Like, when it does, here's what I learned. Our attitude really shows how we feel about God. Now think about that. Our attitude shows us how we feel about God. Do I really believe He's sovereign and in control? I think that's a really valid question to ask. Do I really believe that He's really in control? Here's another one. Do I really believe He has a plan when everything looks so out of control? So I had to ask myself that, and my answer was, yes, I really do believe He's sovereign and in control, and I really do believe He has a plan. But here's my conclusion. I don't think I like His plan. I really don't. Because His plan makes my life uncomfortable. And I frankly like to be comfortable. Okay? That's ridiculous, but that's just kind of the way it is. But it got me thinking. We do a lot of stuff here at Bible Study about the end times. We talk about, the 7 years of tribulation, and if it happens the way that we've laid out this timeline, then we're going to have to go through a portion of this 7 years of tribulation. And if that's the case, it's not going to be very comfortable at all. And if I'm acting like this over a virus, what's going to happen when honestly everything in the world changes? The government, the leadership, the world changes, and we're going to be persecuted for our faith. Like, how am I going to deal with that? So how should we be acting when things don't go our way? When our comfortable suddenly becomes uncomfortable? So today I want to talk about the Apostle Paul, because I want to learn from him. So here's the deal with Paul. Paul was originally named Saul. He was a very, very devout Jewish man, very smart, very zealous for his Jewish religion, his Jewish heritage. He knew the law backwards and forwards, the law that Moses gave, which was over 600 laws. He lived out the law. And then Jesus shows up on the scene. And even though Paul should have seen that this was the Messiah that was prophesied all through the Old Testament that Paul would know, he didn't see that. And so he hated Jesus. And he was out to get anybody who followed what was called the way back at that particular time. So Saul is on a rampage to kill Christians. On his way to Damascus to do this, he has this encounter with Jesus, a risen Jesus, and it changed his life forever. So the man Saul, whose name was eventually changed to Paul, who was very comfortable in his religious life, very comfortable with his Pharisee friends, very comfortable making a name for himself. Now he's about ready to become very uncomfortable because he's changing teams. And no longer is he on Team Jew, he's now on Team Jesus. And that would cause a ton of problems for the rest of his life. See, here's the thing. Paul understood what it meant when he made a decision to follow Christ. Matthew 16:24 says, "Then Jesus said to his disciples, 'If anyone wishes to come and follow me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me.'" Paul knew something that lots of people here on this earth do not know. They say they're a Christian, but here's what they don't get. My life is not about me anymore. My life will be lived for Jesus no matter what that looks like. And for the Apostle Paul, you know what that looked like? Change. Every single day of his life, change. Nothing stayed the same for him, but it didn't matter because he knew a couple of things. One, he knew that Jesus mattered more than his own life. That's a really important point. Jesus mattered more than his life. Look at Philippians 1:21. This is what Paul says, "For me, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And if I'm going to go on living in this body, this will mean fruitful labor for me, yet what shall I choose? I don't know." Because living is so difficult and there's so much change in my life and dying would be so much easier, but I just want to serve Jesus while I'm here. He understood that. How about this? Number 2, run to win. Like really run to win. 1 Corinthians 9 says this, Paul says this, "I do all things for the sake of the gospel, so that I may become a fellow partaker of it. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may win." When Rob and I first got married, we thought we would take up running. It was kind of funny. First day, pretty much thought I was going to die. By the third day, it was over. I'm like, I don't want to get up that early. This is too hard. Wah, 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 because that's just what happens with me. But here's the thing. I wasn't running to win. I quit the race. It was too hard. It wasn't that important to me. Apparently walking isn't either. You would laugh. I told you in the last lesson how I started walking for like a day. And then what happened along with my snake and the Gila monster is I got a blister. And that gives me a great way and a great reason out of walking. Because I can't walk because of my blister. Rob's like, "Well, you could put a Band-Aid on it." No, I don't think I can. It would still hurt. So anyway, bottom line is I don't walk to win. I don't run to win. I don't do any of those things. But when it comes to our life spiritually, Paul is like the poster child for this. He's like, hey, we're running this race and we are going to run it to the end and we're going to win. And the thing that we learn about Paul is he wasn't going to quit because tragedy set in, or he wasn't going to quit because he had to suffer for his faith, or because he even actually, get this, had a physical problem. He was going to keep going. And he was going to keep his eyes on the objective of the race, and that was this. People need to hear about Jesus. That's the objective. And here's what we learn. Paul knew that. Paul knew that people were watching him, watching how he would react to these big changes in his life. Was he going to fall apart, or was he going to continue to follow Jesus, no matter how bad it got? So look how he reacts when life takes a change, a turn for the worse for him. Here there's this point in Acts 16 where Paul and Silas are out and they're preaching the good news about Jesus. Look at verse 22. The crowd rose up against them, and the chief magistrates tore their robes off them and proceeded to order them to be beaten with rods. When they had struck them with many blows, they threw them into prison, commanding the jailer to guard them securely. And having received such a command, threw them into the inner prison and fastened their feet in the stocks. Now, I'm sorry, but if in a matter of couple of hours I'm beaten and thrown into prison for telling people about Jesus, I'm going to be a little whiny, I'm afraid. If I whine about face masks and not be able to eat in my restaurant, imagine what this kind of persecution would do to someone like me. But what hurt my heart was the next part in this verse. And I knew I was never acting anything like the Apostle Paul. Verse 21 says, "But about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns of God, and the prisoners were listening to them." In the midst of being beaten and thrown in prison and put in stocks, they're singing and praising God. In prison. In a place I know they didn't want to be. Even in a place that I don't want to be. I don't do that. But they still wanted people that were listening to them, people around them, to know Jesus. And here's what I learned. How they responded to trials is what would show people around them that they really did trust God, even in the bad times. See, for me, I want to go back to normal. I saw a lady the other day, and she said, "Lisa, I just want things to be the same they were before." But then I had to ask myself, what if it never gets back? What if it never changes? What if we have to wear face masks the rest of our life? What if we never are able to have Bible study again? Like, what's going to happen? Am I going to continue to whine about it? Or am I going to stop and praise God like Paul did for where he was that day? I need to learn to praise God for where I am today. It was so cute. I was talking to my friend Vicki. She said something amazing. She's this really awesome prayer warrior. And she said, Lisa, I've been praying. I've been asking God, what is this? What is this all about? Where is this whole virus thing going in the United States? She said, the only thing I'm hearing from God is this: wake up, drink some tea, enjoy the day. And it was just this great reminder to stop looking back, stop looking at the way it used to be, but start looking at a way to serve God today. Paul had to do that. Think of his life. His life changed drastically. All he ever wanted to do was to be like this top Pharisee, the Pharisee of Pharisees. He studies in Jerusalem. He meets his goal, and he's just climbing this ladder to be this top guy. Because of that, he persecutes followers of Jesus. And then he's converted. These are some major changes in his life. And after he's converted, you know what happens? He leaves for 3 years, and he goes to Arabia. He leaves and he goes away from all his highfalutin Jewish friends at the temple. Paul's life, as he's sitting in Arabia, I think he's realizing this is nothing how I ever thought it would go. Here's what you may be saying. Your life is not going anything like you thought it would either. But you know what Paul did? He took those 3 years and he poured his life into getting to know Jesus. And if your life is not going the way that you think it should, I'm just going to say that's going to be your best option. Pour your life into getting to know Jesus, because if you get to know him, then you will begin to understand why your life is changing the way it is. Because now it's just not your life. Now you're a follower of Jesus. And as your life is a follower of Jesus, it's different. And it will consistently change. Because when we decide to follow him, we go where he sends us. And for a lot of people, just like the Apostle Paul, he sends us places where we don't really want to be. Some of you are sent into hospitals. Some of you are sent into courtrooms. Some of you are sent into the unemployment line. But if we honestly believe that God is sovereign and completely in control of everything that's going on in this world, including the coronavirus, then we can sing praises no matter where we are, in the hospital, in the courtroom, in the unemployment line. So for me, I decided to get a grip on my life. So I was listening, Vicki telling me in the background what she said, and I was like, you know what? I need to start being joyful. So I went to Walmart. You have to walk through and people check to make sure you're wearing your mask. But instead of whining, you know what I did? I said the biggest, happiest hello to the greeter at Walmart. And you know what he said? He said, well, that was an awfully energetic hello. And I said, that's because it's a beautiful day today, as I had my mask on. Here's the deal. It wasn't a beautiful day. It was 110 degrees in Phoenix. It was hot. But you know why it was beautiful? Because mask or no mask, coronavirus or no coronavirus, it was beautiful because of this. I was absolutely confident that God was in control and He is doing something in the United States of America. And even if I didn't like it, I want to be the one singing, and I want to be the one who's a light in most of what feels very oppressive and frustrating. Because here's what we need to know. Life changes. It just does. Paul shows us all of this after he gives his life to Jesus. Look what happens in Acts 9:19. After he has this dramatic conversion, he takes food, he was strengthened. For several days he was with the disciples who were at Damascus. And immediately he began to proclaim Jesus in the synagogue, saying, he is the Son of God. In a matter of days, the Apostle Paul went from, I hate Jesus, to I want to tell everyone that he is the Savior. The same passion he had for killing Christians, he had now for converting Jews. So Paul probably thinks, hey, I'm right here. This is my calling. I'm just going to stay here and start a church. And that would probably be comfortable for him. But you know what? God had different plans for him. Because God is sovereign and He's in control. Because life changes. We got to get that. Look at what verse 22 says. But Paul kept increasing in strength and confounding the Jews who lived at Damascus by proving that this Jesus is the Christ. When many days had elapsed, the Jews plotted together to do away with him. But their plot became known to Saul. They were all plotting or watching the gates day and night so that they might put him to death. But his disciples took him by night and let him down through an opening in the wall, lowering him in a large basket. He gives his life to Jesus, and he has to escape at night in a basket because people want to kill him. See, unfortunately, that's kind of what following Jesus is about. It's about God moving us different places where He will give us more of an influence to tell people about Him. I just always have to say this. Following Jesus, He never promised that it would be easy. We've been watching, which I totally recommend. There's this documentary on, I think you can get it on Amazon, documentary movie called The American Gospel. And it's a reminder to everyone what the gospel really is. Jesus dying on the cross, saving me. It's this message that needs to get out. But there's this false movement that we all know about that's coming in, and it's so weird. And it's this movement that says, you know what? It's really all about you. It's not so much about Jesus, it's about you. And Joel Osteen wrote a book called, Have Your Best Life Now, but that's actually not true. Our best life is not now. Our best life is after we die and we go to heaven and spend eternity with God. But this whole, Jesus wants you to be healthy and wealthy, it's not the biblical gospel. And it's not even praying that God will heal you and make you rich. Now, should you pray for healing? Go for it. But along with praying for healing, you're saying, but God, my life is yours. And if I can serve you better not healed, then don't heal me. Like, it's all about Him now. And if you watch the American Gospel, you will see people on there that have never been healed. Guy with cerebral palsy, lady who has cancer. And yet, you know what? They love Jesus with all of their heart. And no matter what their difficult situation, they are singing the praises of God. Nabil Qureshi was on there. I loved him. He was one of the greatest minds of our time. He was a devout Muslim that gave his life to Jesus. And he sung the praises of Jesus until he died at his young age of 34 from stomach cancer. He didn't walk away and say, well, this Jesus isn't real because he hasn't healed me. Till his dying breath, he loved Christ. I realized through the coronavirus that I've been pretty much making my life about me. Because honestly, I just didn't like how the world was changing, and it was ruining my normal happy life. But something clicked when I started thinking about the Apostle Paul's life. Here was a man who, no matter what he encountered, he just got up, sang praises, and kept running the race. Look at 2 Corinthians 11, verse 24. 5 times, he says, I received from the Jews 39 lashes. That means 5 times he was 1 lash away from death. That sounds horrific. If I break a nail, I cry. Like, this is going to be not good for me. But that never stopped him from telling people about Christ. 3 times, verse 25 says, I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and day I have spent in the deep. His whole life was focused on Jesus, no matter what hardship was ever thrown at him. To top it off, he had a physical affliction. Some people thought it was probably like a problem with his eyes. It's so weird because lately I've been having eye problems, and so I went to a doctor, and they're trying to get me contacts and glasses, whatever, to help this. But Paul didn't have that. If he had an eye problem, they couldn't prescribe him a pair of, glasses. And God never healed him. He lived with it. He trusted Jesus to help him through whatever hardship it was, and he never walked away from his faith. That's the takeaway today. When life changes, we desperately need to know the Jesus of the Bible. Because if we believe in Jesus and we believe that he is sovereignly in control in everything, even the coronavirus, then you know what? We need to be the ones that are singing. We need to be the ones that are pointing people to Jesus. I need to learn to quit whining and to start being joyful in the bad situation. Why? So others can see we trust that God has a purpose for every change that happens to us in life. So that's my takeaway. Let's be like Paul. Let's stop making life about us. I'm saying this, let me stop making life about me. Let's run the race to win, no matter what changes ever come in our life. Hopefully that's encouraging to you. Have a really good week.